One's good news could be a bad news for another. One's bad news instead could be a good news for another person. Prophets in the Bible were the mouthpiece of God. They were supposed to carry God's message and not theirs. Therefore, they were only the messengers of God. Some prophets were accepted, some were rejected. Some were rejected because either the truth that they brought hurt them, or they were hurt because the prophets questioned what they were accustomed to. They were hurt either because they were tested, their convictions were tested. They were rejected because they were happy with what they were accustomed to. They were happy with the old. They were one-track people. They had the island mentality. Anything that was new could not be grasped in its holistic sense. Jesus, St. Paul, and Jeremiah, all these characters we meet in today's Liturgy of the Word, we find meeting with rejection. Jeremiah had to preach at a difficult time. He had to do that because he was a prophet. He had to carry out the mission that God entrusted to him already when he was at the womb of his mother. People thought that Jeremiah was crazy, and they were ready to kill him. When Jesus started preaching, they thought that Jesus was crazy. And now we heard how and what happened in the gospel, that they were filled with fury. For what? Why they were filled with fury? Because their convictions were challenged by Jesus. Jesus came to comfort the afflicted, and he afflicted the comfortable. When you are stuck with the ordinary things, you miss the extraordinary. When you are stuck with the ordinary, you miss the extraordinary. Paul's letters were different from the Gospels. Paul's letters were written to address certain pastoral issues in their community. And we find in this beautiful reading of the epistle, the second reading, which we usually hear on the wedding days. This letter was written to the Corinthians. Corinth was a port city. It was a metropolitan city. It was a rich city. And the people were talented there. They were so gifted. And there was a lot of diversity in this community. There were diverse ethnic and the cultural groups at Corinth. And Paul is aware of the giftedness of this community. But he finds there is a vast gap between the rich and the poor. He also finds that the community in the beginning accommodated the other people, but now they were doing well, but love, the most important thing, was lacking in their community. So, though it was difficult, Paul had to tell them the truth, to praise them for what they are, and also to be made aware of what they were lacking, which was love. As Christians, we are to be expansive. We have to broaden the model of Christ. And who Christ was? Who was Christ? Was he the son of the carpenter, son of Joseph? Well, they saw something ordinary in him. They were stuck with the ordinary. Therefore, they could not see what was extraordinary in Jesus. The message, the prophets, they cannot deviate from their mission. Whether Jeremiah, whether Paul, or Jesus, they had to be faithful to the mission entrusted to them. Today's Liturgy of the Word challenges our notion of being a Christian. The tragedy that could happen to us is summarized at the end of the gospel today. But Jesus passed through the midst of them and went away. Jesus speaks to us. If we reject him, his message, his messengers, unfortunately, he could pass through the midst of us and go away. The people were so furious because their convictions were challenged. And St. Luke narrates this in a more vivid way, that they wanted to see Jesus rolling down the valley so that he could really be hurt and killed for preaching the good news. Once good news could be bad news for another. Once bad news could be good news for another. We were anointed at our baptism to carry out our prophetic role. If you and I do this today in our culture, in our society, what happened to Jeremiah, what happened to Jesus, could be your destiny and my destiny. But we have been invested with the prophetic role at our baptism. That is our mission, to be mouthpiece of Jesus and to take his light to others. Are we ready to take that challenge?